Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, chat. Hello to all the members, and big thank you to the mods who are here helping out today to just keep the wheels on the bus. Did you guys know that Tom Cruise has siblings? And there's an interesting article out about them. We are going to talk about that a little bit towards the end because I have some what I consider to be insight on that and thoughts that we're going to discuss. Going to cover some protest news and ways that Scientology is just like out the window with the shenanigans. We are also going to get into some really interesting information that I've been looking at lately having to do with cults, and including how KELLI COPTER did a video talking about why auditing is dangerous. So lots of good stuff today. I'm Natalie. This is Scientology Life After a Cult, where we talk about the Scientology news that has the internet buzzing, as well as my story of 35 years in Scientology and leaving with 3 generations of my family. So welcome everybody. I would appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and set your notification bell to all so you get other notifications when I go live. Like for example, this afternoon at 3 p.m. Central Time, I'm going to be doing an interview with Relatable Reese. It is our first time doing a live stream, and I'm really excited to do that today. Really excited about that. What a great way to kick off the weekend. So let's get into this stuff here. First, let's take a look at PTS for Life. Jeff just dropped a little ditty, a little video that really lays it out. I love this. You got to see this. Scientology truths from little Davy himself. What do you think that might be about? Check this out.
You've probably heard of Scientology.
Why is it a religion? What's it?
Well, whatever you have heard, if you haven't heard it from us, I can assure you we are not what you expect. So take a look and then decide for yourself.
I just love that. And for anyone who might not be watching but listening, it's basically a short video where PTS for Life, Jeff goes over the truth about Scientology and mostly how it is shrinking, the shrinkage of Scientology. The chipping apart, whatever you want to call it, it is happening. And so many Scientologists, because they keep them somewhat isolated so that one area doesn't really know what another area is doing. But because we have people out live streaming and protesting Scientology and sharing the information of what's actually happening at different Scientology organizations all over the world, which is nothing is happening. It's like crickets out there. It opens the eyes of many people who might come across that in their social media feed, who might still be in Scientology or even under the radar and not quite ready to leave yet. And I know how hard that is. I remember when I made my final decision to leave Scientology. I'm going to digress for a little Natalie story here. When I finally made the decision to leave Scientology, I had 100 reasons to leave. 100, multiple times, and wanted to leave multiple times. The thing that pushed me over the edge was sitting in a mall, crouched down on the floor in the back of a Journey store during a mall shooting, and realizing that if anything happened to me, I will have spent pretty much my entire life in Scientology, not making decisions for myself, not really truly being happy. None of that. Just admiring, feeling like I was on the outside, looking at the rest of the world going by, looking at other families and people living their lives and doing things that seemed so normal and mundane that I was not able to do, or I believe that I wasn't able to do. And that necessity of recognizing how fleeting life can be made me realize that I needed to leave no matter what, even if it meant losing my family. When I made that decision to leave, now, I didn't want to do that. I came up with a plan because your girl is a Virgo and I like to have a plan. And I came up with a plan on how I could possibly get out with my family, with 3 generations of my family. So information like this that is shared especially on social media, the true state of Scientology organizations around the world is helpful, especially for people who are in or under the radar, are afraid to leave, worried about losing family connections, things like that. It's just super powerful. It's the kind of thing that helped me leave. Because even though I made the decision, it didn't mean I didn't have doubts about it. When you spent your whole life being told that your whole spiritual freedom is dependent upon being in Scientology, that you'll be nothing without it, that you're not going to have your family, that you're not going to have your friends, those are many reasons to stick it out. But when you finally make that decision and you follow through with it and you start learning what freedom really is, what it really means, and shedding that whole cult mentality, it is a beautiful thing, though it is really hard. I've been out for 14 years and I'm still working through stuff. I don't know that there's an ending to that, because I think that's life. We're all working through something. There's always going to be a next something. And so I guess my whole point is, messages like that are so valuable, I think, in this movement, because it spreads the actual truth of the existence of what really is happening in Scientology, as well as combating a lot of the lies and untruths that Scientology puts out there. People are finding out. They're finding out. They're knowing. They know what's happening. Let's take a look at this little clip here from Instagram that was hilarious. This is, how did this kick off and get started? It's basically, which male celebrity would you not want to be alone with in a room? In fact, let's have some fun. Chat, if you're catching this on the replay, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which male celebrity, wait, what's the question again? Which male celebrity would you not want to be alone with in a room? And this is from Instagram, and her answer might not surprise you, but I am curious as to who that would be for all of you. Check this out.
What celebrity would you not want to be left alone in a room with?
This one is so easy for me. Right away, Tom Cruise. I refuse to see any of his movies. I think he's a horrible person. I think he's a wackadoodle. All the Scientology stuff. It's a no for me, dog.
Which male celebrity would you not want?
What do you think about that? You know what? I would be in a room alone with them, because I hopefully want to have a conversation, because your girl's got questions. I have questions, Tom Cruise. So many questions. But yeah. Oh, some of you are naming some good ones too, but it's interesting that many of you are also saying Tom Cruise. I guess you kind of, knew where it was going if I'm sharing it as a clip. There's just not too many other ones. Even ones that I might not necessarily like. I would love to be in a room with Grant Cardone. Same reason. So many questions. Now that's assuming that, either of them would be open to having an open conversation about it. But so many questions. I don't shy away usually from people who, even if I don't I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise as an individual. I kind of agree with what that lady said. But if I had the opportunity, I would grab it. I have so many questions. I would just love to know the honest answers. We may never know. Hopefully, maybe one day, we'll see. Let's take a look now at Val. Let's see here. I can't even say that. So I'm just going to play this clip and we're going to talk about it. Has to do with Scientology crazy followers.
It's the 4th of July.
Oh, now I remember what this is. This is from Mark Bunker. Mark Bunker was at a Scientology building years ago. This was over a decade ago on the 4th of July. So it's really interesting to take a little peek back at, 4th of July's gone past. And then later on, we're going to look at a couple of clips and we're going to contrast that to 4th of July today at Scientology. But first, let's look at this video, which this comes from Mark Bunker.
Everybody's invited. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi. Enjoy the festivities. Hey. It seems I was expected, because as soon as I arrived, this fella said into his walkie-talkie, "He's here, south side." This fella came to stop me.
Because the street's closed off right now, sir.
The street is closed off, but it's still a public street.
Now pay attention. This is I'm pretty sure this is a Sea Org security guard. He even looks vaguely familiar to me. Back then, I think this is when I was still in Scientology. Notice how he communicates, right? What he is saying, and think about how we've seen recently with Scientology security and how they communicate. You're trespassing. Leave the street. Get onto the sidewalk. You're trespassing. Very different. I think it's an interesting thing.
Street's closed off, sir. You're not wanted here. Why don't we have the police talk to you right now?
But wait a minute. There's a banner right there that says, "Oh, welcome."
Well, let's talk to this police officer over here.
All right. Hello.
We have a right for you not to be here, okay?
All right. Now, I
trying to
understand that I'm not allowed to come here.
That's right.
And why is that?
Because the street, we have a permit for the street, sir. I'm not going to talk to you while you have a camera on me, okay?
Well, why not?
Because I don't want to. So put the camera down.
All right, officer.
Yes, sir.
Very, very interesting. So that's 4th of July, many years ago with Scientology. But do you see how things have changed with Scientology security? They're really only allowed to say a couple of sentences. Now, if you've been following Scientology for any length of time, you might know that back in, what has it been, 20 years or so ago, David Miscavige came up with what he called the golden age of tech. And tech is technology. It's L. Ron Hubbard's technology. It's all their belief and ways of doing things like washing windows and all kinds of stuff, pretty much anything. When David Miscavige came up with that, the whole idea was basically that you can't trust Scientologists to even practice Scientology correctly. So he came up with these drills. They're called patter drills, where you basically have to say the same thing so that there's more, how did he put it? It was more consistency throughout Scientology auditing. That's what they call their counseling, auditing. So it would be more consistent. He started training Scientologists and insisting that they learn this very robotic way of counseling, of auditing. And as part of that, you can see that it trickles down into how they even respond to protesters. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like we saw in that video, that wasn't like a planned out patter. He was just saying, hey, right? It just seemed more normal. You look at security today and it's very different because they started being trained to just give those, like, here's all you're allowed to say. You're trespassing. Get off the property, you know, whatever it is. It's so fascinating to me to see that change in communication because it is a direct result of Scientology and how it's become so much more even twisted. I mean, it was a cult when L. Ron Hubbard started it, let's be honest. But when David Miscavige took over and started implementing all these golden age of tech this, golden age of tech that, ideal orgs, all this stuff, it took on a whole nother level of cultiness. And I think it's really interesting. So I'm glad that Mark Bunker shares these videos. TORY MAGOO 44 has some on her channel too, because you kind of get to see those differences from back in the day. Now, Sins of Scientology. Ooh, this creeped me out. And it was so great all at the same time, which, let's be honest, I love that. Sins of Scientology dropped a new episode. If you like true crime and you like Scientology, this is it.
Imagine this: a tale of kidnapping, a wife imprisoned, a trail of failed marriages, and children left behind. Picture dramatic showdowns and a twilight spent in seclusion, weaving a legacy laced with secrets and riddles unanswered. What if this wasn't just fiction, but the life of a man revered by some and reviled by others? Welcome to the Sins of Scientology. My name is Sandy McKenna, and along with Abraham Ulrich, in this episode, we'll dive deep into the life of L. Ron Hubbard, the man behind the mystery. His life story reads like one of the most complex of novels, blending ambitions, controversy, and mystery into a legacy that continues to captivate and divide the world. We journey through L. Ron Hubbard's intricate and confusing life, from his early days as a charismatic science fiction writer to the founding of Scientology.
Oh, so good. So good. It's like my window time watching, or I guess more listening, because you don't have to actually watch. I put my earbuds in and make myself a nice cup of tea, then dive in. It's so great. They're doing such a great job. And again, that Sins of Scientology. If you like true crime and you like Scientology, it is the perfect combination. I love that they're doing that. Let's go take a look now at something else I love, which is art and protest art and people coming together over art. And Fluffer Squirrel UK does a video where she called it, I think, Paint and Ponder, where she does a collaboration with somebody else in the community, and they do just that. Paint and ponder. They create. It's very creative and a way to get to know other people too in the community. Let's take a look at a little piece of that.
And I want like resources for lonely people. So if you can stop someone going into Scientology and say, like, why are you going in there? And if someone's like, I'm just really lonely, be like, oh, well, there's these community meals. Oh, well, these weekly meetings here. You know, there's a jigsaw puzzle club. Whatever it is.
It's so true. If you think about it this way, if you're out protesting Scientology, you're out live streaming, and you do run into people who have those needs, it is good to know in your community, where can you send them? What are some actual resources in your community for the unhoused or people needing more help that way? If you're familiar with what they are, it's a great opportunity to be able to share those. Just kind of have it to the ready in your head, or even if you have it written down, because that does happen. We've seen even Ononora protesting outside Seattle and Portland and handing out backpacks with hygiene supplies and things like that to people in that community who are unhoused. And just, again, having those resources, I thought that really struck a chord with me, because I'm like, oh, that's right. If you know, because we talk about not turning to Scientology for help, right? People falling into that trap, the vulnerable, people who are in situations in their lives where they're just in a tough spot. Maybe it could be a relationship or a really stressful situation that they're going through in life. And Scientology will exploit that to pull them in. And Scientologists are trained in doing a drill, which is finding someone's ruin. That means to find out what is it that's ruining their lives. And you're trained as a Scientologist and as a staff member. They practice doing this. They drill it over and over and over again to find that person's ruin, what's ruining their life, and show them the Scientology service that's going to help get them through that. So it's one thing to deter people from Scientology, but I think it's another great idea to have resources available for people who really are seeking legitimate help, right? Could be therapy, whatever it is. And for some that you might run into out while protesting, it could be with housing, right? It could be with emergency services. So it's always kind of good to know in your area what's available for people for help in that way. I thought that was a great point. And you can check out Fluffer Squirrel UK with more Paint and Ponder. She's done other videos like that, and I love it. I love seeing those. Now let's go take a look at PTS for Life. Jeff and Gabe dropped the bomb. Turns out, well, they're going to talk about it, but basically they're talking about how the Vancouver organization is moving. And it's just not as simple as that. You got a link down below to all the videos. We're just going to look at a clip, but if you really want to get the whole flavor, right? You want to take it all in, you got to go watch these whole videos, especially this one, because they lay it out. We're just going to look at a little bit, give you a taste, tip a toe. We're just tipping a toe in the water. Keep that in mind, but listen to this.
Whether they'll answer me or not, I don't know. But if they do, I will definitely report on it.
Right. I mean, if they do sell that building, or if the property manager, like the property manager is going to be out of a job, he's going to lose the property. So it'll be curious to see.
I reached out to zoning committee, because an important thing that we haven't mentioned yet is that building is not zoned as a place of worship.
See, that's the thing. That's what's the interesting thing is they're actually speaking to, like, I guess the property manager and other people around this. I don't know how zoning works in Canada. I only know mainly more in the US, and even that in my state, because zoning ordinances can change even from city to city. So wherever they're trying to move, it sounds like it's not even zoned for, I even hate using that word, that phrase, house of worship, because we know that is not what Scientology is. The only worshiping there is to L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige. We know that. So actually, you know what? There's a little bit more to see on this. Let's finish watching it.
It's zoned as commercial. And so they have to get that approved before they can actually buy the building, which is why I think what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I'm going to reach out to the city council to make sure that they know what's going on. And I also reached out to the property manager directly. I just said, hey, are you selling this building? And is it sold yet? Is there a deal? Is there something going on? Whether they'll answer me or not, I don't know. But if they do, I will definitely report on it.
Right. I mean, if they do sell that building, or if the property manager, like the property manager is going to be out of a job, he's going to lose the property.
It's so interesting. And I love that Jeff just goes right to the people who are making these decisions to find out and maybe even educate about what Scientology is and what's happening. So go check out that video if you get a chance. It's just fabulous. Great info in there. Another one that just blew my socks off. Did you guys see Kelly Copter's recent video? Oh my goodness. This was so fabulous. She talks about Scientology auditing. In fact, it's called Scientology Auditing. Auditing is dangerous. Here's why. And she shares a message from her dad, who is OT5. So that's operating Thetan level 5 on the bridge to total freedom, for those who like to know. And ooh, this was great. Hold on. We're going to play this and then we're going to chat about it.
And he offered some thoughts on this, which he said I could share, which I'm going to read out to you. And he says, the question about is auditing abuse? I reckon it is. If you compare it to the disclosed techniques of MK Ultra, the basic idea was to break down the original personality and create several different personalities by subjecting the victim to trauma and then suggestion. Triggers were installed to switch between the personalities. This was so effective that one personality could be drunk. The handler triggers another personality, and that one will be behaving perfectly sober, even though blood alcohol would be high. This personality has no memory of drinking, and so doesn't act drunk. Auditing makes you relive past trauma over and over again until it is erased. It's not actually erased. And what appears to happen is the mind tries to protect itself from the trauma by disassociating.
That just blew my mind. I love hearing the different point of view of people, especially who, experience Scientology and Scientology auditing, and especially those upper levels where it really starts to get twisted. The control becomes even more tight. The control on someone in Scientology, once you get into the upper levels, becomes so much more strict because they have this idea they hold over you that, well, your behavior is not becoming of an OT, an operating Thetan. And it's the strangest thing because they really believe that I on one hand, I kind of get why they wouldn't want people who've done the upper levels to run around acting a fool, because it is a reflection on that. But here's the thing. The people, when you run around and you act a fool about this with Scientology or something, you start experiencing negative effects in some way or mentally, it's a result because of Scientology and the mental gymnastics that you have to do to get through it and work through it. I grew up with Scientology auditing. That was just a normal thing to me. I didn't understand or have much contact with anything outside of that when it came to mental health. And now, in all the years I've been gone, and the more that I continue to learn about that, the more I see and understand how and why Scientology auditing is actually dangerous. And not just to children, it is to children, especially in those formative years. It's to adults because of that. I never really thought of it that way, that you can kind of you have a different personality, and you'll see that a lot. And it's not something even unique to Scientology. Sometimes people show up with their best foot forward, right? But with Scientology, I kind of almost get into this deeper on another video because I'm not sure I'm explaining it well, but I think you guys might get it. If you've gone through any type of trauma, you had to show up as a certain personality to survive and get through that trauma. And I think that many of you can relate to. It is like that with Scientology, but you're not actually resolving anything. You're just adding more trauma onto it. And when it doesn't work and they're not getting the result they expect, which is complete blind obedience, that is the level of staying in good standing in Scientology. Because in Scientology, like many cults, if you are not in good standing with the cult leader, then you get in trouble. They try to control who you speak to. They try to control who you support. This is what Scientology and other high control groups do. And I know many of you have experienced this, not in Scientology, but in your own high control groups or abusive relationships, where that person just wants to control who you speak to, when you speak to them, what you talk about. They will withdraw some support from you if you do not do as they wish. That is exactly Scientology's MO, and other cults and high control groups share that exact same thing. So Kelly, bang up job on that video. I absolutely loved it. Please go ahead and check it out. It's just fantastic. One of my favorite people to watch is TORY MAGOO 44, and TORY does these midnight videos. Now, midnight in LA. So for me, that's like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I usually catch them the next day. But they are just full of so much insight and little gems from TORY because she has so much experience with Scientology as a Scientologist, as being on the higher levels as an operating Thetan, and then as someone who went from handling the protesters back in the day to becoming one of them. It gives her such an amazing perspective. And I really value what TORY has to say. Let's take a little look at what she did last night.
Ex-Scientologists, the ones that are speaking out, are committed to exposing the abuses of the Church of Scientology. And those abuses are destructive. They are breaking up families, stopping free speech, fraud, medical abuse, lying. You know, it's just sort of like doing horrible things to young kids. I don't know that I have observed that myself, but I know that others have experienced it. So I know through them that they've experienced it and it was awful. So it's like those kind of things all need to be written up to the FBI and they need to be exposed. I've written mine up. Mine are in the FBI. Somebody showed me some FBI reports on me. Not good. It was me when I was in Scientology opening.
Yeah, just so interesting because she's kind of got both sides of that coin, as many people do who were in Scientology. I just love, she's Casey Cat. You said it well, she's a national treasure. I just love her so much. She just has so much love and compassion and just a way about her and just wants to expose Scientology. That's all that she wants to do. It's all she's ever really wanted to do. And she's just legendary. James Steele says, TORY MAGOO, the legend in her own lifetime. Not many can say that. I would agree with that. If you have the opportunity, do check out a lot of her older content on her YouTube channel, TORY MAGOO 44. It's great. And it's neat, again, to kind of see the differences and the evolution, yet the things that remain as commonalities in Scientology as the cult has moved through the years. How that you can tell sometimes they try to adapt, but don't, because they have to follow the dictates of L. Ron Hubbard. Like they have to do what he says. Unless David Miscavige says something else, then it's like, okay, then not so much. Then it can be altered because David Miscavige is basically replacing L. Ron Hubbard as the leader of Scientology. And he has slowly been positioning himself as source, which in the world of Scientologists, there's only one source, L. Ron Hubbard. But slowly over the years, that's now becoming David Miscavige. So watch out. He's going to do even more to put his own twist on an already twisted practice. And we're here for it. We're going to be watching it. Poof 911. I understand everyone who leaves has a different first out moment and a different final straw. What was yours? Which of your videos has your family's escape story? If you go on my channel and you go to not live, but go to videos, you'll see a video that I did with Aaron at Growing Up in Scientology. That pretty much has the highlights of my story. I get into it here and there. And as life becomes more manageable, I'm going to be doing more of that as well. And, I've got some family members who want to come on it again as well and answer your questions and share. So you can find that there. And then if you have any questions about it, feel free to put it in the comments or better yet, email me, Natalie@lifeafteraCult.com. Let's see. Asen says, are those people not supposed to be master communicators? How is the robotic one-word answer masterful? Exactly. That is the whole point. It's not, but they're told. They literally in Scientology, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different times, 6 minimum, Scientologists train in the training routines, right? You hear them called TRs. You hear about bull baiting, where it's just pushing buttons and trying to get a reaction. And you are trained in Scientology to not react to that. And, it fascinates me. Sometimes I get so fascinated by the cultiness of Scientology and how many of you outside of it who've never been in Scientology view it, that I can almost forget that I grew up in Scientology. Like that's my story too. I think that's why I love so much doing this on YouTube, because of all of you who've never been in, sharing your points of view on it, showing how that's connected to maybe something that you went through. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing to me. Let's go take a look now at this is a video. Scientology Audit Streets LA has been re-putting up some content, which I love because he has hours and hours and hours of protesting Scientology. And it looks like he's going through and grabbing some of those key moments and putting them up as their own video, which is really helpful, especially for anybody who might have come here to the community and learned about the bringing down Scientology, exposing Scientology movement, but might not be familiar about kind of how this most recent round of protests got kicked off when Scientology Audit Streets LA started protesting solo outside the Hollywood Testing Center. And in this particular video, and you guys who've been around for a while will remember, there was an email that was leaked to the community by, now you guys all know it was Diane from More Fun Than Sitting at Home. That's her channel here on YouTube. And Diane was never in Scientology, but Scientology kept trying to recruit her. She was volunteering as in this interfaith community. Diane was. And they kept trying to get her come for tours and all this stuff to do work for them so they could then, take credit for it. Well, as part of that, Scientology sent on these emails saying what they were going to do, which was to stand up to the protesters and flip the script and point their cameras at them. At people who are already on the internet showing their face every single day, like they'd mind, right? It backfired, but William Good shared a clip from that. Well, he shared a video from that, and I want to revisit it, especially for you guys who weren't here when this happened. It was known that they were going to come, and this is what Scientology does when they're sending plants out. It's like called a Scientology plant is basically somebody planted or put there to cause disruption, to attempt to cause disruption and dissent. Scientology will use different people. Sometimes they'll just send them out just to document, like I think this guy was doing, who was kind of in the crowd, but got called out immediately. And you can tell he was what we considered a Scientology plant. So take a look at this.
And probably planted him in the crowd to cause problems. So we knew the Church of Scientology planned on sending plants out into the crowd. We knew this because they sent out an email earlier in the day saying they were going to do such. In the email, they said, right now, and for the past couple of months, there are squirrels crawling all over Hollywood Boulevard at the Life Improvement Center. They have their cameras out and are hollering all over TikTok at our front steps. Well, we are going to utilize their cameras to send our message over and over again. I will warn you, you will be utilizing your bullbait TRs, and you will laugh at them because they are really ridiculous. But we are going to flourish and prosper. The Church of Scientology planted this guy. Don't touch him. The Church of Scientology planted this guy in the crowd and probably planted.
Yep, there were many of them there actually that day who were out videotaping. It was one of the most bizarre things I've actually seen Scientology do, and that's saying a lot. It is. It's totally saying a lot. Okay, let's go take a look now on what was happening actually for the 4th of July around Scientology. There was some interesting hubbub, like I don't know what was happening when Mindy Willens was on the scene by the Hollywood Testing Center. I still don't know what happened, but we're going to share this clip and see if anybody has some insight into what was happening here. Mindy came upon the scene. There's a guy there. His knees are all scuffed up. He looks like he's kind of partially wet. His friend gives a fist pump to security. Then there's talk that maybe he was maced. Could have been something that just happened on the street and was totally unrelated to Scientology, but you never know. Let's take a look and tell me what you guys think.
Are you a Scientologist? I wonder if
Mindy asked them if they're a Scientologist and they just walk away.
I really gotta get better questions. Huh. Are you a Scientologist? I'm not answering that question, he says.
Yeah, and he says he's not answering that question. And was he wearing something on his shoulder? Was that like a microphone or just, maybe it was just sunglasses that he put there? But I don't know what in the world happened. And then she went down and kind of watched them from a distance. And that's when she found out that there was some type of, mace spraying or something involved. Just don't know what happened prior. Does anyone know? Did I miss it in the chat? If you do, let me know. But it was definitely neat seeing Mindy out there. Cute outfit too. She just looks adorbs. I think she went to a 4th of July party because I remember seeing part of a video too that had like fireworks and stuff happening. Let's now go over to the blue buildings and look at a clip from Hollywood Aja. Hollywood Aja was out there on the 4th of July speaking with a man who was walking through the Scientology event and got booted. He was with his kid. He had been there before, even at Easter when the protest was going on. And this is really showing you these public events that Scientology is doing are really just not so public. They really aren't. Listen to this.
And we get to this side, and my son's just like looking at the kid smash the bell.
Right.
That's it. He was
A
like,
kid
"You
being
guys
a
gotta keep
kid."
going. And I was like, dude, a kid stopped to see something. I don't
Right.
care. He's like, I don't care. The minute you stop, you're a participant.
The minute, what do you mean the minute you stop, you're participants?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So that's when I started yelling at him.
Yeah. So they're basically saying, because the guy, was walking through with his child at this event that involves other children doing things. And the kid just stopped to look and security was just on him. You have to keep moving. Otherwise you're participating. Isn't that the point though, to participate? If you're having a 4th of July thing in the community, to invite people to come and participate. Does it really matter? Even if the guy was at a protest before, this is the thing. This is what I'm saying. Scientology as a cult even tries to control people not in Scientology when it comes to these public events. Oh, you spoke to a protester? You keep going. You are not allowed. You are not allowed. Swipe left. It just goes to show. It's so ridiculous. Whereas if you just let them walk through and be curious and see what's happening, I mean, and so what if somebody is even live streaming? They're going to see that there's really just not much to it. But when they go so hard on not letting people see, when they go so hard on hiding, it just makes them look so much more culty. They completely look culty. I know this isn't a surprise, but it still surprises me at times. It really does. Now, Confident Chris was out there at Big Blue after dark. Not only did he see some fireworks, but he got a little peek into another one of those rooms, which always makes you wonder what's going on in there.
I told you guys today's a great day to, I think this might be public people, bro. I told you guys. It's a great day we should have let a sign out today. What do you guys think?
That must be a lamp in there, that bright light. It can't be a television because you're not allowed to have one. It looks like, oh, it's a light. So it's a ceiling light. All right. You can see the outline of somebody. And that's where the Sea Org members live. They're in there. Look at the fireworks, though. That's actually kind of cool. But just randomly. I don't know why, but Chris is always good at catching Sea Org members when they're there in their berthing, as they call it, right, in their rooms. He's the one who also caught the 3 bunk beds that are still very much a part of living in Scientology, how their Sea Org members are living that way. Yeah. MD Media 18 says they were watching fireworks. I don't blame them. I don't think they could see them out that window though, but maybe they could. Other fireworks. Yeah. You'd hope. Think about this. They couldn't leave to go look at fireworks. So the Sea Org members that were in there, and maybe they were done for the day, some of them that were in there, they can't just go leave and watch fireworks. They can't. You have to write what's called a completed staff work, which is basically asking permission. You have to put a line on there that says approved, and you have to draw a line that says disapproved and take it to your senior/handler. And if they allow you to leave to do something, they write their name, they sign on the approved line. If they don't, you're not allowed to leave. You're not allowed to go and do something as simple as enjoying fireworks on the 4th of July. So the fact that Scientology keeps people trapped in there and will not let them leave of their own accord on the 4th of July, a date that is all about gaining independence, is rich. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. All right, let's talk a little bit about loaded language and cult language and how cults use language to control. We're going to take a look at this and I want to chat about it with you guys. I find these things to be very helpful in working through my own separating out that cult mentality from, who I am moving forward. And mostly it helps me put the proper words to what happened. This is a situation. In fact, I should tell you guys this. Leaving Scientology, when you're in Scientology, especially for a long time, like I grew up in Scientology, right? 35 years. It is a process to move out of that. It's one thing to get away from it and escape. That's enough, because then they come at you. So you're dealing with that. You're working through your own emotions. You're working through separating out who you are and what your upbringing was, right? Like I think many of you never in Scientology can relate with your own situations of trauma or abuse, right? And at the end of the day, you still need to go back and process that. You still need to understand that, but you have to translate it, because in Scientology, I'm sure you guys have figured this out. Scientology love their own words, to make up their own definitions of words, and all of their, all of they have, I swear, like a word for many different things. Like if you're open-minded in Scientology, that's a bad thing. Out in the world, being open-minded is a good thing. It means your mind is open. You're willing to consider the point of view of somebody else. You're willing to at least hear it. But in Scientology, if you are open-minded, you literally get in trouble for it. That's seen as something bad. You should not be entertaining any other solution or thoughts about life than that of L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. So you need to close your mind to that and only see it this way. That is a huge part of why it's a cult. And creating that language around it is a way of trapping people there. You're redefining words so they think something good is bad. Just like I did growing up, open-minded was like, no, you don't want to be open-minded. That's not a good thing. There are so many like that. And this clip I'm going to share with you gets into that. And it might even help some of you who've not been in Scientology, but are processing your own past in a high control group or a controlling relationship. And if not, maybe it'll give you some tools in case you run into that in life, where someone's trying to tell you who you can talk to, who you can support, all the things that a high control group and cults tend to do. I know I found it helpful. Take a look.
Loaded language. Loaded language is a general term for words or phrases that have deep emotional associations for the listener, like genocide, patriot, toxic, or vermin. Cult leaders will craft their loaded language to have specific connotations. David Koresh used the phrase new light to cast his teachings as divine inspiration. Charles Manson repurposed the Beatles song lyric Helter Skelter to refer to an imminent race war. And Jim Jones borrowed the term revolutionary suicide from Black Panther activists to equate his plan for mass suicide with resistance to authoritarian state power. Through repetition, these leaders ingrain an intense emotional association in their followers' psyche, so that eventually, just invoking a short phrase can instantly summon powerful feelings of beauty, love, fear, or hatred. It's like creating linguistic buttons that can be pushed to generate an immediate response. Another trick in the cult leader's language toolkit is the thought-terminating cliche.
All right. So think about that. This whole idea of loaded language, like someone said in the chat too, reasonable. Being reasonable in Scientology is a horrible thing. You get in trouble for that. Being reasonable, again, means you're entertaining the idea that maybe somebody else has a different point of view and that both of those things can exist at the same time. You can believe what you believe. I can believe what I believe. There's no need on my part to convince you otherwise. There's no need on your part to convince me otherwise. But we might want to exchange ideas. I might want to understand more where you're coming from, so that maybe even if I don't agree with you, I can gain an understanding of how you got there. And this is a lot of that. It's all very controlled. And Scientology has dictionary upon dictionary. There was a dictionary, I think it was like this thick, for technical terms in Scientology and auditing. There's a dictionary that's this thick, which was just administrative words in Scientology. So the more I learn about how cults work and how somebody who's trying to be like this cult leader, like L. Ron Hubbard was, will use this triggering terminology as well. Suppressive person. If a Scientologist hears that somebody is a suppressive person and they're speaking to them, they will immediately shut them off. They will cut them off and go, oh, I don't need to believe anything this person says because they're a suppressive person. Potential trouble source. PTS. Oh, that person's making mistakes and got mugged because they're connected to a suppressive person. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Dropping the body. Let's minimize that. Let's minimize loss. Let's not look at that. Let's not have any negative emotions about it. Those are all ways that language is used to control. In Scientology, there's a couple words that you can say to Scientologists and we'll just get them right back in line. It's all that thought control language. Absolutely fascinating to me. Christine says language twisting religious phrases and ideas is so abusive. Absolutely. That's kind of, I know what I started to see as I started to learn more about cults in the things that cults have in common. And you really then, in knowing that, I think it's a great way. I almost feel like if there's not already, there needs to be some type of education in, Iowa schools, just because it's where most people end up, to empower kids with recognizing high control groups and cults by those things. I don't know. I doubt that would ever happen in the public school system, but I think it would be helpful, even if it's part of parenting. I would love to see, and maybe such a thing already exists, a book or something for maybe not super young kids, but preteens and teens that kind of talk about this as well. So parents can talk to them about it before they go out into the world, before they go to a college that's right across the street from Scientology and fall prey to that, because they can have an understanding enough at least to recognize when somebody is trying to manipulate them. And when you can recognize that, because let's be honest, we can't change the behavior of everybody around us, right? I don't know. Has anyone else tried? You really can't. People are going to do what they're going to do. The only thing we can control is how we as individuals choose to show up for that. And I know I do my best to, just show up how I show up as me. My behavior and what I think shouldn't be influenced by somebody else's issue or what they feel. So in Scientology, what they do is try to get you to see that, you should be sharing in their attack on psychiatry. Or as a Scientologist, you shouldn't be even thinking about different ways of thinking. That's squirreling, which is another term when you talk about language being used to control people. If Scientology says somebody is a squirrel, automatically Scientologists will be like, oh, we don't want to listen to that person. I can't hear that. I can't hear that. That is totally how it works. Now, take a look at, this is another clip from that video, and it got me thinking about, this is like LRH jargon and babbling. Check this out. Lots of babbling L. Ron Hubbard did.
High-level marketing company turned sex trafficking cult performed integrations to rid members of their mental dysfunctions.
That was Nixium. And by the way, Keith Raniere started in Scientology.
Known as disintegrations. And the jargon of Scientology can quite literally fill a 300-page dictionary, which members were forced to study for hours on end. A 2020 study by researchers from Columbia University and USC examined the relationship between jargon and self-perception. They analyzed the writings of a broad spectrum of graduate students and found that the lower the ranking of the university the student attended, the higher the frequency of unnecessary jargon. High-level marketing company turned sex trafficking cult.
So you kind of get the idea there too. It's like, she's not kidding when she said could fill it. I mean, even more than you would think. I saw one comment here. I'm crazy in head. Is there a specific dictionary that's used for word clearing? It seems that most dictionaries will conflict with L. Ron's words. So if you're clearing a Scientology term, they do have two dictionaries. Like I said, a technical dictionary or administrative dictionary. Here's the thing though. I heard that they actually got rid of them and they were going to be redone, but they never got redone. Any of my ex-Scientology friends who are recently out, if you have any new information on that, feel free to share that in the chat, or if you're catching this on the replay, in the comments. Because I know back in my day, we had those two dictionaries, and they if it's a dictionary that's just used in the English language, you're directed to like some type of Webster's dictionary or a Macmillan. There were certain dictionaries that were recommended depending on, what your reading level was like. So definitely some for Scientology. And if a regular dictionary conflicted with a Scientology one, you always had to go with the Scientology definition. So hopefully that answers that there. Let's see here. Thank you, Nancy, for starring away. Asen says the manner how they are talking now gives me the impression that they are mistaken aliens with robots. You must be talking about Scientology security. Isn't it interesting how different it is? And that was like 15, 17 years ago. I think that video was made. And Tori MAGOO 44 talks about this a lot on her channel. Now, her coming out now and protesting today, really, she is seeing it too. These differences and how different it is and how they're not allowed to communicate even more. I love when she talks about that. Let's see here. Pippi Longstocking. Yes, Doug Kramer explained it also in his videos. It's a real thing. I need to go back. So when I came onto the scene in December, unfortunately, he had already passed. I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I would like to check out his channel, which I think is still up, because I've heard that he's got a lot of great information there as well. Hey, oh no, Nora. I see you zooming by there. Good to see you. I thought I saw Liz Gale too. Hey there. Oh, Liz says, my GMA was an editor on the tech dictionary in the 60s and 70s. GMA, your grandma? My grandma was an editor. Oh, that's right. Wow. I wondered, Liz, did you ever find any of her like old dictionaries or anything like that? I'm so curious. I know some people kept some of the original Scientology dictionaries, and it's interesting if you can compare certain definitions to see if they changed, you know, how or what Scientology has added to it. That is kind of the thing too, to make people more controllable. Chiorg says, do they white out the word cult? You know what? I don't remember if cult was in a Scientology dictionary, but I do remember a time when Scientology was trying to take the sting out of the word cult, trying to take the stigma out of the word cult. I even remember course supervisors being like, yeah, sometimes people say Scientology is a cult because of these things, but it was misleading. It wasn't really why people called Scientology a cult, but they tried to take that out of there. Like I read something once that said in China that they changed the definition of the word. Oh goodness, what was it? A democracy. I think it was of democracy. So that people in China believe they're living in a democracy. They just changed the definition of what a democracy was and taught that in schools. You see, Scientology does the same thing. Let's change the definitions. That helps to kind of keep you in that mindset. And then before you know it, you can hardly communicate with anyone but Scientologists because it's so much the lingo. Dropping the lingo in Scientology can be a big thing as well. I know it's something that I struggled with because I needed to learn what the real words were. And that is something I'm still doing to this day. And once in a while, if I'm trying to explain something to my sister, I might use a Scientology term to kind of like bridge that gap because it's the only language I know how to explain this. And then I'll go search out, what does that really mean outside of Scientology? And that is so empowering. What's not empowering, we're going to jump topics here, is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise and his sisters. Did you guys see this? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I'm going to just briefly talk about this. This is an article that came out talking about meet star Tom Cruise's unassuming siblings, including one who runs Scientology courses, who he once said he'd live with if I could. So it just goes on to talk about, you know, Tom Cruise is famous, blah, blah, blah. One of the most pictured faces. He was bullied by his dad. As a result, his siblings formed a tight-knit bond, with Tom even declaring a few years ago, I would live with all of my sisters if I could. We have always been close, my sisters and me, which, let's be honest, that's a beautiful thing. And it appears now that dream has come true, with his family reported to have moved into a luxury Scientology building in Florida, just a stone's throw away from the church's global headquarters. Now, we know this. We've been by it. In fact, when I was there in Clearwater, we even protested outside, and I think we even showed it to you guys on stream. And Lori Plays, Aaron growing up in Scientology, Farrell Cheryl, Dusty, I mean, so many, Kai, George, have showed that building. So I think you guys are familiar with that already. So we kind of know that. But his sister lives there too. And this is his sister. Which one is this? Is that Leanne? Who is it? Let's see. It is Marion. Okay. So so here's his sister Leanne, who is also his former publicist. Do you guys remember when Tom Cruise was doing his couch jumping and really, really like out there about Scientology? That, as I understand it, is when his sister was his publicist. He fired his long-term publicist and then hired his sister as his publicist. And we all saw how that turned out. I'm sure his sister, the publicist, was trained in maybe some L1 Hubbard PR technology. And we all saw how that turned out. Yes, we did. So let's take a look a bit more at this. Let's see. Despite their close relationship, however, the star has rarely been seen with his sisters in public, perhaps because his siblings took vastly different paths to the Academy Award winner. Now, they're in Scientology, so it talks about like his sister Cass is the director of a company that helps run courses in Scientology. Talks about what his other sister is still doing, Leanne. I guess she's still working as a publicist, now managing the luxury Skyview building where the quartet live and being treasurer of the Skyview Condo Association. So Tom Cruise lives in this condo there in Clearwater, and I know that it's for sure one sister lives right below him. I did not know that she was running the condo association, or at least is on the board. That is very interesting, because I've wondered, you can't tell me that they're just going to let any Joe Blow move into that condo building. He has the top, what looks like 3 floors, I think. Then there's the sister, and then there's other people, which I would guess, speculate, are all Scientologists in that building. Because can you imagine otherwise? I bet he has his own private elevator too. When Tom Cruise used to show up at Celebrity Center, I remember, because I was there a couple times, like they locked down the elevator. You are not allowed to use the elevator until His Holiness has gone up to wherever he needs to go. But it's interesting nonetheless. I put a link down to that article so you can go ahead and read the whole thing. You don't often hear stuff about his sisters, and so I thought it was interesting that they were talking about that, because it's like, why are we doing that? Is this something that his people put out, or is it something that they just went ahead and decided to do? I don't know. I am not sure. Let's see here. Scientology triggers. I wouldn't put it past Scientology to use recorded audio and video to create AI videos of SPs saying or doing outrageous or illegal things, then have lawyers, have PIs hire thugs to release. Oh, completely. I wouldn't put anything past them like that. And it's such a cowardly way to go, because if you can't debate or explain or try and like show us how Scientology is not a cult in the face of overwhelming evidence that it is, then all you can do is resort to name calling and trying to paint people in a bad light, because you really don't have a leg to stand on, because Scientology is a cult and there's enough overwhelming evidence out there and experiences of so many former members. There are more ex-Scientologists than there are Scientologists. I guarantee you that, by multiple times. Because remember, they count anybody that brushed up against a Scientology building. Oh, you touched the building, you a Scientologist now. Add them to the total. Oh, it's just ridiculous. Casey Cat, thank you for being a member for 4 months. Says, just checked, Amazon has several Scientology dictionaries. That is interesting. Very interesting. Literally, Lisa, we teach social emotional learning in public schools. I personally go out of my way to teach age-appropriate examples of abuse and control. That is fantastic. That's wonderful. And I think that just needs to happen more, even in our own households, because cults are everywhere, I've come to learn, right? When I was in Scientology, I wasn't really paying attention to other cults, because why would I? Who has the time? But my time out of Scientology, and especially here on YouTube, and seeing and understanding, learning more about all these other cults, there are so many commonalities in the way that they operate. And I just feel like if we can understand that, and if we can amplify that message and those tools and share that with our kids as they're growing up, to, hey, this is something you got to watch out for. I think it also teaches a level of emotional intelligence. It flexes that muscle, because you're saying, get an understanding of this by understanding the mechanics of how it works. And I think that would be so great. I think that would be so great for kids. Let's see here. Asen says, the day they tickled William Good the wrong way will be remembered forever as the day Scientology done messed up. I agree with you completely. Absolutely. 2 sandwiches tall. What would happen if protesters just responded with repeating, Where's the permit? And keep walking. Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out. That's a great way of doing it because that's what they do. The street is closed. You're trespassing. I mean, just, yeah, where's the permit? Where's the permit? Give them back some of their own training routines that they were trained to do. That would be really interesting. Anne says the cult should just plant them in the planters and be done. So plant the plants. Oh, that's funny. Mia Mo, I just watched LA. I never knew how to say this. Is it LAD Bible? I don't know how to say it. Anyways, you watch the episode on Ex-Scientologist exposes inside secrets, and I heard some horrible things, but I wonder, why does the cult use so much money on harassing people who left? Because it's the people who left who are sharing their experiences of what actually happens behind those closed doors. It is one thing. It is a beautiful thing to have so many voices, people never in Scientology, who are sharing and amplifying that message and standing up and saying, hey, we are not tolerating this. This is not okay. This is not happening on our watch. And through that process, it's like, it's just a great combination of worlds. But I think that they do that because they think that that's how they're going to control the narrative. If we can stop the people from speaking out against Scientology, if we can control who they speak to, if we can intimidate them into not speaking freely, then what happens? They think that that'll do it. The joke is, though, it doesn't work. It doesn't. Most people who are active in speaking out against Scientology, who are former Scientologists, have a very the knowing and understanding of what happens in Scientology is so strong and real to them that it's going to take a lot for them to stop talking about it. And mostly because of the extremely high numbers of all of you never in Scientology who have rallied around and said, hey, we're not tolerating this either. You're all standing up to this bully known as Scientology. So what are they left to do except to try to stop the people sharing their stories, which is just not going to happen. They don't have the power. It's like people, Scientologists and more ex-Scientologists are seeing the support out there of people also who see Scientology for what it is, because Scientology will try to gaslight a member and convince them that that's not what you see. That's not what you see. That's not what's happening. They have torturous techniques that they use on people to reprogram them and get them back under that mind control so that you start towing the line again about Scientology. So all they can do is try to go after people who they consider to be critics. Whereas the reality of it, these are people who lived it for years, for decades. And those voices are being amplified. And it's just something they cannot slow down. There are more and more and more. A lot of people leave Scientology. It's not their first stop to, hey, I want to share my story. I would say 98% of them don't want to do that. And sometimes it takes years to where they feel comfortable and stable enough to be able to even talk about it and do that. It's different for every single person who leaves Scientology. It definitely is. Just like for many of you, whatever you went through in life, right? Your traumatic event, your high control group. Sometimes it takes some time to kind of get steadily on your feet and to continue to talk about it. It can be very difficult for people who grew up in Scientology, who were in the C organization, to go back and be in that space. That is a very big deal. And for some, it's incredibly difficult. And I applaud anyone that goes and does that, whether you've been in Scientology or not, but especially people who were in Scientology and are now going back and facing that. It can be incredibly empowering, but it doesn't mean that it's not without some side effects and can stir up a lot of things. And thank goodness for therapy today and for correct and valid mental health treatment to help people work through that. But a huge part of that is all of you who've never been in Scientology here and who are supporting and amplifying these voices and saying, you know what, I believe you. I had my own situation with trauma or a high control group. I can totally see that. And together, it's like we're walking out of it and just learning more about it from each other. Andrew, thank you for being a member for 3 months. Says Streets for President. Oh, how fun would that be? That actually would be really cool. That'd be neat to see. Just him running, right? Just even that far, I think would be really neat. Let's hear. Kim is blue. Thank you. Never ends. Won't stop. Can't stop. Yep. Never in Scientology, but all in on bringing the cult down. That's what we have on a t-shirt. in the merch shop, because that is something that my Tony helped design. He's someone who was never in Scientology and took on this cause, and it became a big part of what he wanted to do was be with me in standing up to Scientology, and we did. And we do. Hi from New York. All right. That is what I got. But here's the deal, you guys. Check back, because at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, I'm doing my first live stream with Relatable Reese. Come with your questions. Be ready to have some fun and get into a multitude of topics. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm glad that we've finally been able to get our schedules to meet to work. I would appreciate it if you got value from this video, if you hit that like button and hit the subscribe button as well. So I will see you guys this afternoon if you can make it back for that live. Otherwise, make sure you catch it on the replay. I hope you all get out there and have an amazing cult-free day.